Hello, welcome. Thank you for joining me today. I'm going to talk about the current energies, but also right after I did the reading last week, I started having these dreams, and I felt like I was being urged to talk about this other thing, but I was like, I don't know. I don't know. I need more synchronicity to guide me in that. And so I thought well, if it still feels like pressing or whatever next week, then maybe I will. I'm just learning about myself, but basically, then there were more things that happened over the weekend in relation to this. And then I just did a personal reading this morning, and this same topic came up through the cards for her reading, where I was like, okay, this isn't just a me thing. This is a personal, or this is a collective thing. And I feel like I feel like it's something that I want to share and that I want to talk about. And I kind of feel like I want to share these dreams because there's transmissions in dreams and there's transmissions in symbols and colors, and I just feel like there's a lot of information that can come through sort of in that coded way, that is almost like more important than me actually talking about what I want to talk about. So I'm going to share these dreams, but basically in the last reading that I did, I didn't really pull any card. I pulled like two cards, and one of them was the Two of Air in this new deck that I have. And so in it like her hair kind of curled up like this, and it looked like there were two suns rising, which was really crazy. I didn't share this in that message, but I did share it in the personal reading this morning. And it's interesting because there's a lot of synchronicities around this dream right now. Okay, and so basically I had this dream about a year ago, and I was sitting in this pavilion, and I was by myself, but it was like looking out. It was up high, and it was looking out over the eastern horizon. And so I was sitting there alone, but I had this feeling of like oneness with everything. I was just in that sacred holy space. And I was looking out, and there were right at the same time these two suns rose, and I was just absolutely in awe. And then right at that moment, one of my main soul family people came, and he sat beside me, somebody that really activated me. So he was very much a part of my awakening. Okay, and so he came and he sat beside me. But what's interesting, and we didn't speak or anything, we didn't even acknowledge each other. We were both just kind of acknowledging this thing that happened that felt very divinely timed. That was something that everybody knew was going to happen. Okay. And so he was wearing, and this is important for the next dreams of last week, he was wearing this black and red checkered flannel shirt, where I just registered it, and I didn't know why that stood out to me, but now I know why, because of this other dream. It's like trying to get your attention, right? These symbols, they try to get your attention so you can piece things together, so you can see the patterns, so you can read the energy, so you can understand what messages are being brought to you at a certain time. So just using this as an example, Okay, so anyway, then in that moment, I became aware of all these other people. I wasn't alone. There were all these other people, and all of us, it was like my soul monad or something. We all knew that when those two suns rose, we were going to move into this pavilion, and we all started moving into this pavilion. So it did catch my attention when I saw those two suns in that card. I was kind of oh, weird, but I just, whatever, you need a couple synchronicities to know if it's really speaking to you. And so talking fast, I always kind of talk fast when talking fast, just because I want to get on with it, right? And so we went into this pavilion, and by the time I got there was this woman, and she was like, oh no, they're not going to let us in. And I was just like, no, the two suns rose, this is the time, nothing's going to stop us. And so I went out to see what the opposing force was, and it was just this one guard, this one man that didn't even look like a man. He looked like a crumbling body form of ashes. There was just nothing to him. He had no life force. He could barely move. And I just there was a shovel or something beside me, and just, it's a dream. You have everything you need. So I picked it up and I just whacked him with it. And I was like, why am I the only one out here? But I was like, well, it doesn't matter, because, first of all, it's my dream. But second of all, it's there was just no threat to him at all. And there was this other man, then this other man came, you have everything you need. And so he was this big man, and he came, and he had a weapon too. And we were just kind of beating him together. And then we looked at each other, and we were like, we don't need to do anything. He's not dead. He's not dying, but he has no power anymore. He has no power. Okay. So that was the dream, and it really stuck with me. It really stuck with me because it was that feeling of premonition, when this happens, we know this. Okay, so in this dream that I had last week, there was this man, and he was dead, and he was naked, and I was in this group of people, and there were some other things that happened. Like, I was standing, like, I'm just trying to think of how many details I want to tell, but I did kind of merge with this man. I was looking at him, and I was like, where do I know him from? And it was that deja vu feeling of almost like the sun dream, where it was like, when the man dies, and then, something, it means something. And so I was standing in the bathroom, and I had this weird taste in my mouth, and I was like scraping my tongue, and I was spitting, and I was like trying to get the taste out of my mouth, and I knew it had something to do with him and with his death and with something. It was kind of weird, but then he was there, but what's interesting is he was wearing a black and red flannel shirt. Okay, so I knew it was connecting me. My subconscious was connecting me to this other dream, this sun rising dream. So it was very much about, like, there's something going on right now. Okay, and so he took me into this room, and he was like, okay, it's starting to happen for you. And it reminds me very much of, like, my daughter and I, we always watch shows, like, we're like guided to watch these shows, and like when we watch them and the messages in them and when we end them, it's like, it's always like synchronistic, and we're always noticing, and it's powerful. So we were watching Teen Wolf last winter, and in Teen Wolf, it's like whoever gets bit by the werewolf, they start to change. They start to have like heightened perception, and then the other werewolves kind of have their eye on them, where they're like, oh, okay, he's starting to think he's going crazy. We got to get him in a room and let him know what the fuck is going on. So that was very much what the dream was like, where he was like, okay, it's starting to happen for you. It always happens by that windowsill. And I was just kind of like, oh, I don't remember the windowsill. And there were all these like kind of things that like I was like, I like remembered but didn't remember, that kind of thing, that deja vu thing. Okay. And so anyway, so that was that. And then later in the dream, in the night, I was with him again, but I didn't, and he was naked again this time, and he wasn't well, and I didn't remember any of the other dreams, any of the other snippets. I was just helping him. I was like an intermediary between him. He was on my left, and on my right were these guides, and his guides, it felt like, there were other people, but they felt like his guides, because they were looking out for him, and I was like in the middle, and I was kind of like, well, I just had this clarity where I was like, well, all he needs to do is connect with his Arcturian aspect, his galactic aspect, but in particular Arcturian. And it was like this Einstein quote of like, you can't solve a problem from the level of consciousness that created it. And so, but it was very specific about the galactics. Okay, so I then, when I woke up in the morning, I was reflecting on all these dreams, and as I was reflecting on that part, I started to fall asleep again, and I was in between. I was asleep, but I wasn't dreaming. It wasn't like images. It was more like a communication. And so what I was seeing very clearly was again the Einstein quote, but where it was like, I thought it was just for me. Like, I needed to call on my galactic aspects to assist me at this point in my journey, And so, but at the same time, because I was like the intermediary in the dream. Oh, and he had said to the guides, he was like, well, she's gonna feel it before I do. She's gonna feel it before I do, and she'll let me know. And I was like, yes, absolutely. Like, that is why I'm here. That is why I'm here. And the guides were in agreement, and we were all in agreement. Okay. And then I woke up, and then when I was feeling into it, it was like asking the galactic aspects to help us. Okay. So I felt like the urge to kind of like share that, but again, I wasn't sure. Okay. So then Sunday night with a new moon, I didn't know what time the new moon was or anything like that, but I did know that I was having this very powerful, like the new moon was hitting right on my Rahu, my north node, exactly to the minute, a direct conjunction. And I woke up in the middle of the night. I actually thought the new moon was on the 14th, because that's what my Vedic person was telling me, but he was wrong. It's on the 13th. But I woke up in the middle of the night, apparently like right around the time of the new moon, and I had this like huge experience of like, as if it reminds me of the two suns, right? As if there were these two options, and I was sort of in both of them. But in that moment, it's like this higher one, the correct one, had such a strong current that I just like toppled in the river. It felt like I toppled in the river, and I was in the current, and it was like so much ecstasy and so much bliss. And I do have a lot of bliss and ecstasy. I get into states like that a lot. I always have my whole life, but this was beyond. This was like two suns worth of ecstasy, bliss, and just this feeling of like surrender and like crossover. Okay. This sort of like crossover feeling. Okay, so this, I'm trying to think of how this weaves in. the other part of what I want to say, how long did I talk for? Oh, only 9 minutes. Okay. 10 minutes actually. And so, what I'm feeling is that we're at that point, like where that timeline split, where we've been in two, but what's interesting is, the marker was when the two were visible, right? The two were visible. They were kind of merged as one. You didn't know you were in two. You were in both. You were sometimes in the lower frequencies, sometimes in the higher, and all the while we were like building our neural pathways so that our default mode was that higher consciousness, was that unity consciousness, was viewing through the eyes of love and inclusiveness and all these things. Okay, but we had to kind of go in and dismantle, the conditioning and we still